All right, here we go. We're in round number 4. We're going to see if Mark has his chance to redeem himself and maybe draw some lands. Once again, playing blue-red control on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, it looks like we've got John, often referred to as Patch in our store. He's on, what does it look like, a black-white control or just black-white? I'm just going to value you out with planeswalkers and removal spells.
Looks like it, and he's got quite the array of answers to pretty much any sort of creature thing, it looks like.
Looks like he also has a million dice. That has nothing to do with the actual match. I just wanted to make a note of it.
If you're going to be a Magic player, you gotta have the correct amount of dice to do everything that you could possibly desire.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but it's moderately tilting that they don't match.
I'm a little tilted by it too. Is that 3 Concealed Courtyards? What is that?
It's a Forsaken Sanctuary, leading off with the Forsaken Sanctuary into 2 double Concealed Courtyards, and leading into the new Gideon. That's the first we've actually seen of him this weekend, and promptly getting censored. That must feel good when you get to Force Spike. Right?
I would feel great. Like, yes, you can play that Gideon on turn 3, censor.
Yeah.
That's gotta feel way better than the other games if you're Mark.
Oh, yes, definitely. But I'm gonna guess that Patch has got a bunch of things left to
I think now he's a little afraid of the censor, because I think I saw a 4-mana Gideon in his hand. Nope, that's a Fumigate. Never mind.
No.
I was confusing it with probably the other Gideon.
Yes. So,
they are both Gideon, so
we've got the that promo or whatever, Anguished Unmaking.
Yeah, it was a game day promo.
Yes, there we go.
I quite like that art, actually. I think all the game day promos look really nice, but that one especially. Yeah. I mean, I like the normal art for it too.
Ooh, this is rough. Just jamming the Ob Nixilis after having seen a censor. Granted, Mark did cycle a censor previously, so Patch probably thinks, what are the odds?
I would worry about disallow, actually. He did leave 3 mana open. I would be more worried about something like that. Even in negate, I would think that maybe a blue deck runs 1 or 2 negates main. I would have been afraid, but I guess there's no time like the present. Might as well try and cast Ob Nixilis if it resolves. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly main deck Ob Nixilis, there's probably not very many control decks that are packing ways to be able to deal with that. Certainly in the main deck, any of the blue varieties, because once Ob Nixilis is resolved, it's going to put Patch so far ahead. It's just, sure, I'll lose a life a turn, but I get to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, you're right. The blue-red deck isn't going to have a whole lot to say about it once it resolves.
Yeah, I mean, so Mark doesn't really have to worry about, and this is exactly what I was about to get to, Mark doesn't have to worry about any counterspells or anything, but Commit to Memory, I think I heard someone refer to it somewhere as blue, like the blue hero's downfall, or
yeah.
it's certainly not that actually, but hey, sometimes you need to get rid of a planeswalker.
Sometimes, at least just get them to take a step back or two. I do think that the interaction between Commit to Memory and the Gearhulk is very interesting.
It feels so broken.
I was gonna say borderline broken. I haven't ever actually had to play against it, thank God. I'd be very upset if my opponent played a Commit to Memory against me. I'd be like, oh no, I know what's coming in about 2 turns. Yeah.
So just for you all that are unsure of what are you talking about? Commit to Memory, Gearhulk? Yeah, sure. You just flashback the commit part. Well, the new Aftermath cards, because they're weird templating. They're Commit to Memory. Even though Memory is a sorcery, it's also an instant because of the commit part and the way Torrential Gearhulk is worded. You can flash in Torrential Gearhulk and cast the memory part at the end of your opponent's turn. So even though you do both end up shuffling your graveyards and hands in and drawing 7, you are the one who gets to start with those 7 cards and kind of set the pace for the rest of the game.
It's a mixture of setting the pace, assuming even if your opponent had the Ob Nixilis out, you're kind of doing this thing where, I drew all these cards and I've fit my hand to do what I want to do, and playing memory kind of stops your opponent from doing what they want to do.
Yes. And that feels rough when you just start getting beat down by Gideon. This is not the place that the control deck wants to be in, because once the Planeswalker is resolved, there aren't many ways for especially blue-red to be able to deal with them. I could see if it was blue-black, you'd have the Never to Returns. But we also can see that Mark just has an affinity for not drawing lands.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would feel bad or a little scared being the patch going and swinging with Gideon if my opponent had that 6 mana.
Yeah.
But clearly he does not. We don't feel too bad about swinging with Gideon, not too worried about a Gearhulk coming in and just like soaking that damage up, so it feels pretty sweet. But there comes the 6th land. Now we can, safe to say he's going to say pass and hold up that Gearhulk in hand like a blue deck does.
Oh, yes, indeed. And this is actually one of the times where you actually might Gearhulk the commit part to be able to just get rid of the Gideon and hope to draw within the next 2 turns maybe another Gearhulk to be able to flashback another counterspell or an actual counterspell to be able to get rid of the Gideon once it's bounced. But this is getting nugged for 5 a turn is certainly problematic.
Yeah, yes. And at this point, if you're Patch and you just watched him take that 5, you're saying, oh, you're bluffing the Gearhulk.
I kind of just, at this point, you can safely just sit back. We see Patch has got an Ob Nixilis in hand, but earlier we also saw a Cast Out.
Yes.
And any threat, the Gearhulk is the perfect target for Cast Out. That's really is the only thing that's gonna get Mark back into this game. He has to be able to start doing multiple things a turn, and well, Gearhulk is that implied in and of itself.
Exactly, and if Patch does get into a bad place, he's got a Linvala in hand.
Oh, whew.
That's
Rough.
Gotta feel like a pretty good safety net.
Yes.
I would say. What do you think he has the Westvale Abbey in his deck for?
That's a good question. I feel like there's not there. I guess Gideon creates creatures, sure. It's probably he's determined that his mana base is such that he can afford maybe 1 or 2 colorless lands, and sometimes you've stalled out the game and being able to create 1/1s, and then maybe even an Ormondal is worth it. How many?
He's running nothing that really generates creatures in the main board, at least. I don't even really see anything in the sideboard.
I guess Oath of Liliana and then having 1,000,000 Planeswalkers is technically generating creatures.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, Gideon makes typically a bunch of Knight allies, and, I mean, assuming you're not swinging with him.
Yeah.
So, I guess, yeah, you could eventually get there. I guess if your mana base is probably as solid as his is, which it looks like, you don't mind running a 1 of Westvale Abbey.
A 1 of Westvale Abbey. Yeah, I could see it. I don't think it's necessarily going to hurt the mana base too much.
He's also running a Blighted Fen. I like the Blighted Fen a lot.
Blighted Fen feels like of the utility lands, that feels like one of the best ones. Just because you can sometimes, if that's all you've got and your opponent is in the game plan of I've got to attack with my Gideon, well, certainly Blighted Fen says no to that.
Ooh, all right, so he's doing the Gearhulk Commit to Memory.
Oh, here we go. Flash. This is the interaction we were talking about. Looks like we've got a little bit of a judge discussion.
Dispute.
Yes. Can you actually do that? Because it says it's a sorcery. Yes, indeed, you can do that.
I mean, yeah, if I'd just seen it for the first time, I'd call judge on it too, just to be safe.
I can understand that. It's weird the way the templating of abilities and cards work. And
especially this particular instance.
There's been a lot of a kerfuffle, I guess, of split cards just in general. I mean,
they did just change the other ones.
Yeah, they changed the rules with regards to converted mana cost. Now it's just at all times you add them together, which that makes sense. I understand trying to be as intuitive as possible. This still feels like one of those instances where intuition is kind of just like cast out, if you will. Because it just, you can't do that. It's a sorcery, but the card itself is both an instant and a sorcery.
And it does say that on the card as well, I believe, in most cases. So at least they have that little bit of clarification that they're trying to work with. Are we still waiting on a judge call with this, I think? Yeah,
it looks like the judge is just off in the corner taking a look at the oracle text. Not the oracle text, but like the gatherer page or whatever. Like hey, you're probably going to get a question about this. There's this cool judge page. You're probably going to, someone's going to do this and someone's going to ask you a question about it to see if it actually works.
Yeah, but I remember when this kind of interaction came up, first on like Magic Online, I think, before it ever came up anywhere else, and everyone was like, is it a bug on Magic Online, or can you actually do this? And they were like, no, you can actually do it, and everyone was like, riot in the streets, this can't happen. Except for unless you were a blue player. If you were a blue player, like you're like, this is sweet. I love this. This is great.
Yeah.
But
looks like we're at the point of the resolution. The resolution of the judge call to determine, because it looks like they're taking a look at their hands, and Patch is going for his mana. It looks like he's got plays that he could potentially do. We can Anguished Unmaking the Gearhulk once it resolves, but the memory part of Commit to Memory is on the stack, or maybe even a Cast Out to make sure that at least there's not a Gearhulk on the field when
Exactly, and I think I would do the same thing. Just like use the Anguished Unmaking, get that out of the way as fast as possible.
His life total is a resource at this point. The 3 life is not going to.
He only goes to 16. Yeah, it's not that bad to lose that.
It's not really going to matter at this point. Plus, it's virtually free because you kind of get back. Yeah, exactly. You get the Anguished Unmaking back. Yeah, if it wasn't for that Anguished Unmaking, I'd feel that Mark was kind of ahead, but right now it feels like Patch is just leaps and bounds ahead. He has the active Planeswalker on board, he's ahead on lands, and he's going to get a full grip of 7.
Yeah, I don't actually think that I would have cast that part if I was Mark. I think I would have gone for throwing Gideon further down into the deck. Yeah,
just be able to get the Gideon off the table.
Exactly. Have something on the field, you don't have something on the field.
Yeah. Exactly. That makes sense. I could definitely see that too. And doing it at the end, it gives him at the end of his turn, it gives him 2 turns worth of draws to be able to get an answer to the Gideon possibly.
Yeah. But hey, maybe you're this blue player and you're like, man, I got this sweet play that's kind of a weird judge call. Might as well try and do it.
I've got this sweet interaction, and by damn it, I'm gonna do it.
Exactly. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah. Even though I would have done throw Gideon a few cards down. Yeah. Save yourself a couple of turns.
Now I'm just trying to think of what could Mark possibly be doing. Of course, he's advantaged in the set. Not advantaged, but he's. It's great to be the one to start your turn off with a new hand,
of course,
and all of your lands untapped. So he, like we said before, he kind of is able to set the tone for the next couple turns. Except he kind of really isn't, because it just goes back to that active Gideon on Patch's side. Like, what? How do you answer this? Mark only has 1 Commit to Memory in his entire 75. So other than that, there isn't really a way for him to deal with the Gideon.
And he was kind of putting that Wandering Fumarole forward, and that would feel so bad to commit to memory and then your only play be swinging with a Wandering Fumarole.
Yeah, it doesn't. The thing is, it doesn't even kill Gideon.
It doesn't. It's kind of just a means to an end.
Yeah.
The Dynavolt Tower feels a little bit better. That's something that can maybe eventually start to hit Gideon. We can't exactly see how much energy he's at.
That's true. It looks like he's at about. He's at 2 energy because he hasn't cast anything else.
And has 2 Aether Helps.
Yes.
That makes sense. Okay.
That being said, with the Gideon already at 6, I can't see Patch not plussing. This is at minimum 3 turns.
Yeah, exactly.
For the Dynavolt Tower to be able to get rid of it, and that's a flurry of spells that Mark is going to be able to cast.
Exactly.
By all means, the Dynavolt Tower is a great way to be able to eventually get rid of Gideon, but he might be a little too far gone at this point.
Too little, too late.
Yeah.
I imagine Mark is going to Glimmer. Kind of just, why not?
Sure.
Do the blue thing when you have 4 mana.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to think, what cards can we possibly see Mark drawing to be able to get out of this spot?
I don't know that there's a whole lot, to be honest.
Yeah, it might have to be Torrential Gearhulk into blocking the Gideon, praying that there's not an instant speed way for Patch to be able to answer it, which there really aren't.
I mean, he has Grasp of Darkness.
Yeah, that's true. Cast Out,
Grasp of Darkness. He only runs the 1 Anguished Unmaking.
Okay.
So I would say the Grasp and Cast Out. He runs 3 Grasp, 3 Cast Out. So those are probably the biggest things that you have to worry about tapping out for a Gearhulk.
I guess it doesn't feel good, but technically he could disallow the plus activation.
Yeah, that would feel really bad.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely feels really bad. But you're at the point where
if you're at 5 life, you got to do what you got to do.
Yep,
you're right.
You have to spin those wheels, and maybe it'll allow him to get to the point where he can then Dynavolt Tower multiple times. Maybe disallow Of course, all of this assumes that Patch just has nothing, but we know he's got the full grip, and he's doing exactly what he should be doing, kind of just sitting on this Gideon and saying, okay, deal with it.
Yep.
What are you going to do? This Gideon has done all of the damage this game thus far.
And if you know the meta right now, you know that blue-red deck isn't going to have anything to do damage, really, to a Resolved Gideon, unless you're running something like Fiery Temper or Incendiary Flow.
Which these decks aren't playing main board.
I wouldn't think so. I probably wouldn't play main board either.
Yeah. The only thing that I guess Patch could possibly be considering is, like, there is a chance that Mark is playing a second Commit to Memory, and he's only seen the one. So, a possible consideration, but then again, that doesn't necessarily mean you play more cards out.
Does Commit to Memory get exiled, or does it go back into your deck?
It gets exiled.
Okay.
When you cast an Aftermath spell, it gets exiled.
Okay. I thought so, but I wasn't sure because of the interaction with Torrential Gearhulk.
Yeah, it's super funky.
I guess it still technically counts as you casting it, so yeah, it would be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Torrential Gearhulk says to cast any instant. Mark just in the tank. What? Yeah. What do I do here? Is there anything that I possibly can do? We saw he put up the Wandering Funeral was kind of a little bit above the rest of the lands, thinking, you know what,
Could swing a Gideon?
Yeah, if I'm able to attack, there's no blockers, but what are the odds that there isn't a removal spell? And this is ultimately the line that he decides, well, no, maybe I'm going to do a little fake out. No, I'm just going to readjust the mana. Yep. A little bit awkward considering that there is only one red source that isn't the Wandering Funeral itself, unless he wants to get rid of the energy. But then again, that takes away from the Dynavolt Tower, so a little rough.
What do you...
There we go. So we see some value out of the Westvale Abbey.
There we go.
And this is when Mark thinks, oh, crap.
Something along those lines.
This is my plan to be able to kill the Gideon, and now Patch just says, I really don't care about this 1/1, because now you're just dead.
And that Wandering Funeral will be dead if you swing with it and try to swap its power and toughness.
Yeah. Well, no matter what, Mark's plan is definitely, okay, this is how I'm going to kill Gideon. Wandering Funeral just... it's been a little bit since decks were playing Westvale Abbey, so I could easily see him forgetting about it. And it's been a non-factor this entire game up until this point. So he just forgot about
that ability.
Yeah, being able to make the blocker. And so
that's not an ability you see even used that often.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's probably thinking, oh dear, I have to be able to get rid of this blocker so that I can kill the Gideon, or I'm just dead. Because there's no instant speed ways, of course, outside of the disallow, to be able to, I guess, get rid of that Gideon, but he's already tapped so low. He's cycled a sensor. What is this, another cycling of a sensor, possibly?
Looks like it. I can't imagine what else is going to cost 1 mana on his main phase.
Yeah, and then what, are we hoping for a magma spray to be able to get rid of it?
Yeah, I would think so.
And then even then he's just super far behind.
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, scooping it up. Looks like a Resolved Gideon is pretty difficult for the blue-red deck to deal with.
I wonder why everyone plays 4 of them.
Yeah, Gideon's pretty strong. And Patch is playing more than 4 of them because he's also playing 3 mana new Gideon.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, why not? If you're going to play the 4 mana one, you might as well play the one that gives you a, you can't lose this game.
Well, we've kind of been going back and forth between this. So where do you think the advantage bar lies between black, white, and blue-red?
I think if you're playing a blue-red control deck, you're hoping to play either against an aggro deck and stave them off long enough to cast things like Torrential Gearhulk, or you're hoping to play against another control deck and kind of out-control duel them. So playing against a deck that's kind of an awkward control deck, like this black-white deck, it feels really awkward. They don't really like tap out as much as an aggro deck does, or play counter magic like another control deck. And so you feel kind of awkward keeping in your counter spells, but you don't really have like an aggressive direction to take. So I would say that it's the black-white deck that has the favor.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, given the power of just like the raw power level of each of the black and white cards versus like some of the cards in the blue red deck are kind of just like mismatched against the just like I said, the overall power level. I do like the possible, like, Glorybringer is just going to be a house in the sideboard. If there was a deck to bring this in against, it's definitely this one.
I think that Glorybringer is definitely going to come in. I would also say probably the Dragon Master Outcast.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, Patch is going to be shaving a good amount of those removal spells to get rid of, maybe... Because there aren't many targets.
I imagine he'll bring in, like, all of his hand hate. Like, he has a Lay Bare the Heart here. Yeah. I imagine... I personally have wanted to do something like Scarab Feast.
Yeah.
Which is the exile 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard. I would love to do that when my opponent casts, like, a Torrential Gearhulk and just be like, oh yeah, let me exile those things that you would like to target with the Gearhulk.
Yeah, definitely. I could see this match being... exciting because I like these like weird stack battles. Granted, there's not really going to be much of that because, well, one side really isn't playing blue.
Exactly.
It's going to be butting heads in a lot of ways. I feel like these next couple games, Patch is just going to say, "Here, I've got this thing. Can you counter it? No? Okay, I basically win." At that point,
I want your opinion on Patch has Dispossess and Lost Legacy in his sideboard. How do you think that those things that search for all of a certain card and exile them are worth playing against a control deck?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so bringing in Dispossess, if you're on the control deck side, well, the control deck playing blue, because I guess Patch is also a version of a control deck, you have to anticipate playing that the black player is going to be playing Dispossess. So the question is, do I just like side out my Gearhulk? Because otherwise there isn't really any targets. That does feel really bad. I could see that being the case. Granted, like Essence Scatter is like really bad, so there are some other cuts that Mark does want to take, but I guess if they want to play the Dispossess, sure. And Lost Legacy, it feels kind of weird. I guess you could hit like, I don't know, maybe some of the counter spells. I think it's just one of those things that forces your opponent to like, okay, deal with it, or else I'm just gonna like continually shave down. I'm always a fan of those like hand disruption and just like tearing apart their deck from like Patch's side. So I mean, I bring them in and then you just kind of play around your hand, what you think is going to be the most detrimental to your opponent at that time. And
I'm less of a fan of Lost Legacy. If I was going to play it, I would try to name something like Glimmer of Genius, something that they're constantly going to run 4 of.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Lost Legacy feels more likely to name like Ulamog against like the Marvel deck, and Dispossess like naming Marvel.
I would name Marvel. I've really wanted to cast it. Name Torrential Gearhulk, but it feels a little kind of lost in that sense. Because
I was able to do that once. It feels really good. It does indeed feel really good.
I'm hoping I can feel that feeling at least once in the standard.
At least once. Well, let's see if Patch is going to be able to get that feeling.
Let's hope so.
All right, game 2.